The world would one day call him the White Death. But before the legend, before the war, before the snow turned red beneath his feet, he was simply Simo Häyhä, a quiet farm boy from the Finnish countryside. He was not tall. He was not imposing. He was not the kind of man anyone imagined becoming the deadliest sniper who ever lived. He was small, lean, and almost invisible in a crowd. And yet, everything about him was built for war. He just didn't know it yet. The land that shaped a weaponed Simo grew up in the tiny village of Rajärvi, only a few kilometers from the Russian border. Winter was not a season. It was a ruler. For 6 months of the year, the world was frozen. Forests buried under endless snow lakes, sealed beneath thick sheets of ice winds, sharp enough to cut exposed skin temperatures, sinking to -40°C, and below. Children learned early that comfort was a luxury. Survival was a skill, and the greatest weapon a man could have was patience. Simo learned to ski before he could read. He learned to move through forests without snapping a twig. He learned to hunt squirrels, deer, and elk with a calm precision uncommon even among grown men. Most importantly, he learned how to disappear. The birth of a sniper at the age of 17, Simo bought his first rifle. A Finnish Mosin Nagant, iron sights, no scope. He trained alone in the woods. He practiced, shooting while lying in snow, steady breathing in extreme cold, remaining still for hours, camouflage, using snow, bark, and branches, tracking animals, silently firing without revealing his position. He taught himself everything, not because he wanted to be a soldier, but because he loved the silence, loved the control, loved the discipline of becoming one with the forest. No one knew it at the time, but this simple farm boy was shaping himself into one of the deadliest marksmen the world had ever seen. The quiet life that could have been. Simo was a man of few words. His neighbors described him as gentle, polite, and almost shy. He wasn't a drinker. He didn't gamble. He didn't boast. He worked on the farm. He hunted. He joined the civil guard for training. He lived quietly. Had the world remained peaceful, he might have become just a farmer. A man with noise in history. History had other plans. 1939, when winter turned to war on November 30th, 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland. 500,000 Soviet soldiers surged across the border. Tanks, artillery, bombers, trucks. An army so large it seemed like a black wave swallowing everything in its path. Finland had fewer than 4 million people, almost no tanks, almost no aircraft, little ammunition, minimal supplies, but it had something the Soviets did not: winter in its blood. And it had Simo Häyhä. Joining the front, Simo was 33 when war erupted. He volunteered immediately. He carried his old Mosin Nagant rifle, a white winter camouflage, a backpack, and the calmest heartbeat on the battlefield. When he arrived at the front, his commander looked at the quiet, short man and asked, "Can you shoot?" Simo simply nodded. He never needed to brag. His rifle would speak for him. The snow becomes a killing field. The war, later called the Winter War, was unlike anything the world had seen. The Soviets pushed forward in massive formations, wearing dark uniforms that made them perfect silhouettes against the snow. The Finnish soldiers, in contrast, wore white. They moved silently through forests on skis. They struck quickly and vanished. Simo was placed in the front lines of the Kala district, a place that would soon become a yard. On his first day, he found a small snowbank overlooking a Soviet advance route. He carved a small hollow space in the snow, packed snow in front of his rifle's muzzle to hide the smoke, placed snow in his mouth so his breath wouldn't visible vapor. He became invisible, a ghost in the snow. Then he waited. Hours passed. His fingers stiffened. His face burned from the cold. His eyes watered. But he did not move. Not an inch. Then he saw movement. A Soviet soldier, followed by another, and another. Simo exhaled slowly. His heartbeat slowed. He locked onto the first target and fired. One shot, one kill. The Soviets panicked, scrambling for cover. Simo fired again, and again. Each bullet found its mark. Each body fell silently into the snow. By the end of the day, he had recorded over 24 kills. The legend had begun. The making of the White Death word spread quickly among Soviet soldiers. A Finnish sniper was slaughtering entire units alone. He moved like wind. He struck without warning. He left no trace. Soldiers whispered, "He is not human. He is a phantom. He is the White Death." The name stuck. Simo Häyhä had become the most feared man in the entire Soviet military. The commanders take notice. Finnish officers were stunned by the reports. Some thought they were exaggerated, until they saw Simo return from a mission with his rifle covered in frost and his expression unchanged. "How many today?" an officer asked. Simo shrugged. 20, maybe more. They checked later. He was right. The Soviets declare war on one. The Soviet High Command grew increasingly frustrated. How could one man stop battalions? How could one rifle, without a scope, kill more soldiers than artillery? They sent counter-snipers, artillery barrages, search teams, scouts, even entire platoons, all with one objective: kill Simo Häyhä. But every time they thought they were close, he vanished, like a shadow swallowed by the snow. This was only the beginning. The winter war grew harsher. The cold deepened. The snow thickened. And the legend of the White Death spread like a virus. Soviet soldiers whispered his name around campfires, terrified that speaking too loudly might summon him from the trees. Soon, every soldier on the front line had heard the stories. A man who blended with the snow. A man who fired without missing. A man who could not be seen, heard, or tracked. A man who killed silently and vanished. Simo Häyhä had become a myth. And myths terrify armies. The sniper hunters, the Soviet command was humiliated. Entire platoons were being pinned down by one man, one rifle, one pair of eyes, one breath at a time. They deployed specialized counter-sniper teams, trained marksmen whose only mission was, find Simo Häyhä, kill Simo Häyhä. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were the best the Red Army had. But the problem was simple. They were hunters. Simo was a ghost. The first encounter. A duel in the snow one morning while patrolling a ridge. Simo felt it. That strange sense of being watched. It was faint. Barely a whisper. But he trusted his instincts. He slid behind a fallen birch tree and scanned the forest with calm eyes. Nothing. Not a movement. Not a sound. Not a bird. But Simo knew. He melted deeper into the snow, becoming part of the landscape. Minutes passed, then hours. Most men would freeze. Most men would grow impatient. But this was Simo's world. Then, a faint glimmer, a reflection off metal, a sniper's scope, a rookie mistake. Simo adjusted his iron sights, took a calm breath, and fired. The enemy sniper collapsed instantly. One shot, one kill, and the duel was over. The Soviet counter-snipers learned he never misses, and he never reveals himself. The Soviets try artillery, this time unable to kill him with snipers. The Red Army escalated. They decided to unleash artillery barrages on suspected locations where Simo might be hiding. Entire sections of forest were blasted into craters. Trees snapped like toothpicks. Snow exploded upward in white clouds. The earth itself shook. Yet soldiers in the Finnish trenches saw something incredible. When the shelling stopped, Simo stood up, brushed snow off his coat, and walked away as if nothing had happened. His comrades laughed in disbelief. One shouted, "Simo, are you immortal?" He simply shrugged. There was no bravado, no swagger. Just that calm, quiet face. He didn't need to be immortal. He just needed to be precise. The snow den, Simo's deadliest trick. Simo developed a technique that made him nearly impossible to detect. Before each mission, he built a sniper nest in the snow, dug a shallow hollow, lined it with packed snow to hide muzzle flash, placed snow in front of the rifle to prevent visible blasts, filled his mouth snow to conceal breath vapor, then he froze. sometimes a full day. His camouflage was so perfect that Soviet patrols walked within meters of him without noticing. He watched them pass, then chose his targets carefully. Officers, commanders, machine gun crews, scouts, radiomen, every shot weakened the Soviet advance. Every kill was deliberate, cold, calculated, efficient. The Soviets sent a master sniper. Frustrated, the Soviets finally sent one of their top snipers, a man known only by his call sign, the Red Ghost. He had more than 200 confirmed kills. He was a hunter of hunters. His orders were simple: find the White Death. Bring back proof of his death. He tracked Simo for 2 days. He found footprints. He found disturbed snow. He found spent cartridges. He knew he was close. On the third morning, he set up his nest in a perfect location. Hidden, silent, deadly. He waited for Simo to reveal himself. But Simo had already found him. He noticed that the snow had been brushed too cleanly. Branches were snapped unnaturally. Birdsong was missing. Simo settled into his shot. The Red Ghost never fired. A single bullet from Simo entered through the sniper's upper cheekbone. Kill confirmed. The hunter had become the hunted. The number that terrified the world. By mid-January 1940, Simo Häyhä had achieved what no sniper in history had ever done. Every day, his kill count rose. 15 kills, 23 kills, 24 kills, 21 kills, 22 kills, 30 kills, 32 kills day after day. In one 24-hour period alone, he reportedly killed 25 Soviet soldiers with his iron sight rifle. Word spread across the finish lines like wildfire. Commanders visited him personally. Soldiers asked to shake his hand for good luck, but Simo seemed unaffected. When one officer congratulated him on surpassing 200 kills, he replied, "I'm just doing my duty." By early February, his official count exceeded 500 confirmed kills. And that didn't include unconfirmed kills by submachine gun kills during heavy snow, kills during artillery chaos. Some estimates place his real number far higher. The Soviets grew desperate. The Red Army was terrified. They tried everything. Decoy mannequins. Simo shot them immediately. Teams of snipers sweeping the forest. He shot the leader and they fled. Bait patrols. None ever returned. Flamethrowers. Snow melted, revealed nothing. Targeted bombardments. Simo crawled out afterward unharmed. A Soviet officer reportedly said, "This man must be stopped. One soldier should not be allowed to destroy an entire company alone." But the White Death kept killing, quietly, efficiently, relentlessly. The first time he came close to dying, February 9, 1940. Simo crawled into a new sniper position overlooking a frozen lake. He scanned the horizon. A flash, a bullet slammed into the snow inches from his face. A Soviet sniper had ambushed him. Simo ducked behind a small rise, heart pounding. The enemy was good, likely another elite counter-sniper. But Simo was better. He slowly repositioned, lifted his rifle, calmed his breathing. One shot. The Soviet sniper's rifle snapped upward. His body collapsed into the snow. Simo exhaled. But it was the closest duel yet. The bullet had grazed his coat. It would not be the last time he came close to death. The night before the end, by the end of February, Simo's kill count was so high. Officers warned him not to risk himself. Soldiers begged him to stay behind the lines. The Soviets placed a massive bounty on his head. But Simo refused to leave. The Soviets were preparing a major assault. Finland needed every rifle, every man, and every ghost in the snow. Simo prepared his weapon one last time, clean, loaded, cold as ice. He didn't know it yet, but the next day would be the White Death finally fell. Or so the Soviets thought. The Winter War had reached its breaking point. February 1940, temperatures fell to the 40s C. Snowstorms howled across the front. The Soviet Union prepared a massive assault to finally break the Finnish defenses. And Simo Häyhä, the White Death, the ghost in the snow, the nightmare of the Red Army, took his position one more time. He had already killed more soldiers than most platoons combined. He had become a myth, a weapon, a force of nature. But on this day, the The Soviets brought hell. The final advance the morning began with artillery, not a barrage, a hurricane. Thousands of shells exploded across the finish lines, trees vaporized. Snow blasted upward like geysers, shrapnel screamed through the air. Simo stayed low in his snow den, his rifle pressed against his shoulder, eyes calm despite the chaos. He waited. He always waited. When the barrage ended, the Soviets surged forward, columns of infantry in dark coats, machine gunners, sappers, snipers hidden among them. A human wave, and Simo began his work, the last killing spree he fired. One shot, one kill, reposition, Fatherkin, another kill. He moved through the forest like a shadow, never staying in the same place twice, never allowing the enemy to triangulate him. Soviet officers fell first, then machine gun crews, then snipers attempting to counter him. His kill count rose with terrifying speed. 10-4-7-2-2-2-6 blood stained the snow around his position, but none of it was his. A Soviet soldier shouted, "The White Death is here! He's here!" Panic rippled across the line. Some soldiers fled sideways, others froze in place, paralyzed by terror. But this was the day the Soviets came prepared. And this time, they found him. The shot that ended everything. Simo spotted movement, a Soviet sniper crawling across a frozen ravine. He aimed, but the sniper had arrived with support. A second Soviet marksman lay hidden in the tree line, watching for the White Death. The instant Simo fired, the second sniper shot. The bullet hit Simo in the lower left jaw, traveling upward. His rifle flew from his hands. His body collapsed backward. His face exploded. The bullet tore away half his jaw, shattering bone, ripping flesh, destroying teeth, and exposing the inside of his cheek. Blood flooded the snow around him. Steam rose from the wound. Simo Häyhä, the deadliest sniper who ever lived, lay dying. Finally, the soldiers who refused to leave him, two Finnish soldiers nearby, saw the fall. They sprinted across the ice, bullets exploding around them, dodging enemy fire to reach the fallen legend. One shouted, "It's Simo! We must get him out!" The other hesitated. Simo's face was mangled beyond recognition. The injury was so severe that no one believed he was alive. One soldier whispered in horror, "He's gone." But then, a miracle. Simo moved, his chest rose with a shallow breath. His fingers twitched. He was alive, barely. The soldiers lifted him, one holding his head together with a scarf to stop the bleeding, and dragged him back toward the finish lines. Bullets chased them. Explosions rocked the ground. But somehow, they made it. The official announcement: when Simo reached the field hospital, doctors gasped. No one had ever survived such an injury. His face was unrecognizable, a red ruin where a jaw had once been. The doctors worked desperately, but the bleeding was too severe. Simo slipped into unconsciousness. He did not wake up that day, nor the next, nor the next. The Finnish High Command made an announcement. "Corporal Simo Häyhä has been severely wounded. He is not expected to survive." Many soldiers assumed the White Death was gone. Dead at last. The day the dead man smiled. 12 days passed. February 13th, 1940, the day after Finland signed the peace treaty. Inside a military hospital near Helsinki, a nurse dropped her clipboard in shock. She had seen a man without a jaw, a man who had been unconscious for nearly 2 weeks. Smile. Simo Häyhä opened his eyes. His first words were impossible to understand. His jaw was gone, his heavily bandaged, but his eyes were clear. Alive. Focused. A legend reborn. The first visitor, when his commander came to see him, he stood beside the hospital bed and asked gently, "Simo, do you know what happened?" Simo blinked. Then he nodded. The commander's voice softened. "The war is over. We survived. Because of you." Simo's response, despite his shattered face, was legendary, rough, broken, barely audible, but unmistakable. "I'll be ready for the next one." Not a boast. Not bravado, a statement of fact. The official count when the war ended, Finnish officers compiled the battlefield reports. The numbers were staggering. Simo Häyhä had 505 confirmed sniper kills, and over 200 kills by submachine gun, dozens more unconfirmed kills, untold enemy soldiers routed or pinned down. Total, over 700 casualties credited to a single man in less than 100 days. The highest confirmed sniper kill count in human history, a record that still stands. A number so unbelievable that historians debated it for decades. But battlefield documents, Soviet reports, and Finnish logs matched. Simo Häyhä was real. Recovery, and a new face surgeon spent months rebuilding his jaw. He underwent dozens of operations, bone grafts, skin grafts, reconstruction. He would never look the same again. But he lived, and more importantly, he kept smiling. Even with half his face rebuilt, he returned to hunting, skiing, and quiet life. He never bragged, never sought fame. When asked later, "How did you become the world's deadliest sniper?" he answered simply, "Practice." Simo Häyhä woke into a world that had changed. The war was over. Finland had survived. Barely, thousands had died. Cities had burned. Borders had shifted. But the quiet farm boy who had become the White Death had lived through the impossible. His face was shattered. His identity was known by every soldier in Finland. His legend had crossed oceans, and yet he wanted none of it. All he wanted was silence. The same silence he had known in the forests before the war. The man in the mirror, when the bandages were finally removed after months of healing, Simo saw his reflection for the first time. His jaw had been reconstructed. A new line of bone had been grafted in place. His cheek bore deep scars. His lips were misshapen from reconstructive surgery. He stared at himself, a long silence. A nurse asked carefully, "Are you all right?" Simo didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He simply said, "It's a small price to pay." A small price for surviving a bullet that should have killed him instantly. Return to the forest, doctors told him. You will never shoot again. Not with precision. Not with your injuries. Simo nodded, then ignored them. As soon as he was able to walk steadily again, he returned to the forests of Raucharvi. He carried his rifle. He breathed the cold air. He listened to the snow. The first shot he fired after recovery was a challenge. His face hurt, his jaw throbbed, his vision blurred slightly. But the bullet hit the target. Dead center. He smiled. The forest felt like home again. What does a legend do after a war? Most war heroes turn into politicians, officers, public speakers, national symbols, authors. Not Simo. He avoided newspapers. He refused interviews for years. He stayed out of politics. He avoided any kind of spotlight. He lived quietly, hunting elk, tending land, working with forestry officials, training dogs, teaching a few trusted young men how to shoot precisely. He was a man who had seen too much death to enjoy fame built on killing. Simo once said, "I did what I was told as well as I could. That is all." But the world refused to forget him. The Soviet soldier who came to find him in 1963, a rumor began circulating in Finland. A former Soviet soldier, one who had fought in the Winter War, was searching for the White Death. He arrived in Finland with a translator, claiming he wanted to meet the man who had changed the war. Simo agreed. The meeting was tense at first. The Soviet veteran stared at Simo's reconstructed face. The scars, the asymmetry, the evidence of a bullet's cruelty. He said, "You killed many of my comrades." Simo, calm as ever, replied, "And your comrades tried very hard to kill me." The Soviet nodded slowly. Then he extended his hand. "You were a worthy enemy." Simo shook it. History has many strange moments. This was one of them. The weapon he carried until old age, even into his 70s, 80s, and 90s, Simo still hunted, still moved through snow silently, still shot with frightening accuracy. His preferred weapon? A Succo L-46 bolt-action rifle. A civilian hunting rifle, simple and precise. People who saw him shoot in his later years reported, "He never missed, even half-blind and old. He still had the eye of the White Death." His skill was not luck, it was discipline, focus, silence, and a respect for the weapon that bordered on spiritual. The only time he spoke about fear, Simo rarely talked about war. Not about the kills, not about the danger, not about the terrible winter. But once, only once, a journalist asked him, "Were you ever afraid?" Simo paused, then answered, "No, I only did what had to be done." "But not even once?" the journalist insisted. Simo nodded. "I was afraid that Finland would fall." That was his fear, death. Not bullets, not the Soviet Union, but losing his country. For Simo, patriotism was not a sentiment, it was duty. The meeting with the president in the 1990s, long after the Cold War ended, Simo was invited to meet Martti Ahtisaari, the president of Finland. Simo, at this point in his 80s, arrived quietly. No medals, no decorations, no ceremonial uniform, just a simple suit and a warm coat. The president introduced him as a national hero, a man who defended Finland when hope was nearly lost. Simo simply nodded, then said the same words he always said, "I only did my duty." Ahtisaari later admitted, "When I shook his hand, it felt like shaking the hand of history itself." The final years of a ghost Simo lived into old age, decades longer than any Soviet sniper who hunted him. He became something of a legend even among younger Finns, many of whom sought him out to hear his story. He refused to glorify war. He taught discipline, patience, respect for nature, respect for the weapon, humility, quiet strength. One young hunter asked him, "What is the secret to being a great shooter?" Simo replied, "Practice, and never hate your enemy. Hatred clouds the mind." It was wisdom earned in blood and snow. The day the ghost finally rested on April 1st, 2002, at the age of 96, Simo Häyhä passed away peacefully in a veteran's nursing home. No enemy bullet, no battlefield, just silence, fitting for a man who lived in silence his entire life. Finland honored him with military respect. Soldiers placed flowers on his grave. Snipers saluted. Hunters stood in quiet respect. The world remembered him not as a killer, but as a man who defended his home, did his duty, and asked for nothing in return. The legacy of the White Death to this day, no sniper has matched his confirmed kill record. His tactics are taught in military sniper schools worldwide. His patience and discipline are considered legendary. His story is studied as an example of psychological warfare, marksmanship, and survival. Simo Häyhä was not a monster. He was not a machine. He was a man, a quiet farmer who became the deadliest sniper in human history because he believed his country needed him. And when the war ended, he quietly returned to the forest, as if disappearing back into the snow from which he came.